All right, we are back with a brand new wrap. Part 2 of the Derby reaction. Part 1, filmed on my iPhone. That was very much stream of consciousness, top of mind stuff, more the emotional reaction to the game. And this video is going to be a bit more analytical in my usual sort of vibe. So I didn't know how long I'd get to record a second video. As it happens, a window popped up earlier. So hence the back-to-back videos. But let's talk about Western Derby 58. Again, we've all talked about how good it feels, so we'll park that for a minute. We'll talk about some of the numbers that were pretty interesting from this game. And very interesting stats, and I want to credit some work I've seen on Big Footy as well to further legitimise this. So first of all, I'll rattle off some of the main team stats that we got from this game. So 48 inside 50s to 40, it's pretty good. Not an absolute belting in inside 50s. We actually went into this game higher ranked than Fremantle on inside 50 differential, which just speaks to the development we've seen in this phase. We've clearly been, without double checking, we've been horrific and probably the worst inside 50 differential team over the last 2 years. And I reckon even in the back end of 21, that was quite a big weakness from us. So transitioning the ball in general has massively improved. To restrict them to 40 is also awesome. 40 is a really low number. And we were efficient with 48 that we had there. So 8 more inside 50s, and we were leading the game at one point by 64 points. So we lost the clearances 36 to 42. Context, Fremantle went into this game as the number one clearance differential side, which is, that's not bad considering also the hitouts were 52 to 24 Fremantle's way. So a bit of an advantage in the hitouts, well, definitely. I have Fremantle as the number one ruck combo in the competition, but Darcy and Jackson there. So we're always going to need to make up a little bit of ground in that respect. So overall, the clearance battle, that's very passable in my opinion, considering we also beat them at centre clearances specifically, as opposed to stoppages around the ground. So that's great. Contested possessions plus 24. Now that is actually a big smashing. We've beaten them in 24 plus. I don't want to put a pin in this and cycle back to this because this is a really interesting stat. Like I said, found some good stuff on Big Footy thanks to other people's work that I would like to put a spotlight on. A few other team stats that are really pleasing. 101 marks. It used to be a trademark of our team. I think it used to be if you get 90 marks, or if West Coast did, we would generally always win the game when we were a good team. So 101 marks is good. It speaks to us, obviously, dominating the air to some extent, but also getting some uncontested footy as well. And you also consider contested marks 17 to 7. We smashed them in this, so our tools really went to work. And 14 marks inside 50 to 9. 14 marks inside 50 is very good going. None of this is a huge shock. We won the game convincingly. But still, it's good to look at these individual KPIs. Now, 39 points from the back half is interesting. So apparently, that is the number one result of any team this round. And apparently we did it against Richmond too. So we're scoring from the back half, which is outstanding because that was already a problem of ours for years. Again, I'm going to go back to the end of 2021 where things started to fall apart a little bit. And I say a little bit, I mean massively. We were stagnant with our ball movement. We had to try and reinvent a game style with a bunch of players that were probably suited and certainly conditioned and programmed to play one certain way. And getting the ball from D50 to 450 was our biggest Achilles heel, hence the low inside 50s. So to get 39 points from the back half in this game and be the number one ranked team over the last fortnight in convincing wins just speaks to the progress and the game style change, which again I'm going to elaborate on further. We're now 8th in the league in clearance differential, so we're a decent clearance team. We've had a fairly tough fixture. Obviously, we've won the last 2 games, but the first month will speak to that. So over the course of time, with the fullness of time, we'll learn exactly where we sit in the clearance pecking order. But again, Fremantle, even though we won the game, number one clearance team in the competition. So yeah, obviously we know what the work that Yo and even Bailey Williams and Kelly are doing in terms of actually winning clearances to help that number. And Harley Reid, which I want to talk about a little bit as well. We were actually ahead of the Suns on clearance differential as well, very narrowly. It's like 0.1 ahead of the Suns. But when you consider they've got Matthew Rowell, who I think is the number one clearance player in the comp still, at least he was going into last week. That's encouraging, and it gives us a bit of a sniff about this week. I'll probably do a video in its entirety as a preview for the Gold Coast game, which, by the way, we can totally win now. I'm not sure if I'm going to tip us, but we'll get to that. We've moved up to 13th in inside 50 differential. So as I said, we won this game 48 to 40 in inside 50s. To move up from 13th really, or to 13th, really speaks to the progress we've made in this area. The Dockers slumped to 15th. Interestingly, massive outlier, the Demons are 16th, third last in the comp, for inside 50 differential. So that's madness. So those are some really interesting stats from this game that we've trended positively in for a number of weeks that I wanted to highlight there. I will go through some individuals again. I know I highlighted a few, but now I've had time to absorb the game better. We'll go through even more. So I want to highlight Tom Barrass as having an outstanding game, and I think the pleasing thing about this is I was a little bit worried about TB, and I know I wasn't the only one. There were comments in there, potentially connecting the back injury he sustained last year to the drop in performance. And I was one of those people that was also like, I hope that's not true, but maybe. So for him to be as good as he was is a huge plus. Now, it's come at the cost of him getting a 1 week suspension. My personal opinion, 1 week is about right. As soon as it happened, I was like, yep, that's a week. Now, Charlie Cameron shouldn't have gotten off. They both should have gotten a week, in my opinion. And that is going to be a problem for us because we are so depleted in our key back stakes now. No Jamison. It's just going to be McGovern. Rotham kind of isn't. He definitely isn't a key back. And then, Hoff, who's played well on some smalls this year, might have to go back and play key back again. So we'll work through that. We'll work through that. In the preview video, I'll come up with some better ideas. Jake Waterman, third in the Coleman. Unbelievable. I think he covered 13 kilometres in this game. Unreal. 11 goals in 2 weeks. Amazing to see. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but he's been fantastic. Kelly also had an underrated game, in my opinion. 24 disposals. He had the most metres ground on the field in this game and had 7 tackles. So, yeah, I don't want to hear it anymore about this trade. I did a one-sided trades video and I got a few comments saying Tim Kelly should be in there. That video is framed really specifically on how the players perform for their new team. And, Kelly's been pretty good for us. And, he's a really important player this year. Doesn't mean that the trade was the right thing given where our list is, but I'm just saying we need to have some respect for what Tim Kelly's doing. Harley Reid, he reminds me of what Luke Shuey did for us in 2011. Now, I would say that Harley Reid is more talented. He might be one of the most talented players we've seen in decades start playing AFL for what he's doing. From a contest point of view as well. I think that's the amazing thing. Most teenagers, they come in and they usually thrive in a more uncontested role. If they've got good skills, that's usually conducive to playing early. Now, Reid is doing that, and I think he's still getting more uncontested than contested possessions, but he's 30th in the league for clearances, and if that doesn't sound impressive, these are the players who have less clearances this year who have played the same amount of games. Clayton Oliver, Chad Warner, Shea Bolton, James Rowbottom, Luke Jackson, who's had an outstanding year, and I know he plays a multitude of roles, but still, George Wardlaw, who's a year older, Connor Rozee, James Warple, and he's also level with Gawn and Petrarca. So again, really one-dimensional way of analysing it, but regardless, it just speaks to how good he is already. It's ridiculous. And he's also getting a lot more centre bounce time. I believe that he's 4th at West Coast in total centre bounce percentage, which means, only 3 players on average attend more centre bounces than him, and that's Bailey Williams, who's a ruckman, Yo, and Kelly. Other than that, it's him. Jinby's numbers have dropped way off. I think he's playing a bit more on the wing, but it's not like we're hiding him, from the tough stuff, and we know he's a factor forward like he was in this game. And was amazing with his aerial presence as well. Yo, we already know about 6 clearances, 26 touches and a goal. Brady Hoff, again, another underrated game. I thought he was also good with the ball in hand. He got 17 touches. Michael Walters, his opponent, had 7 touches and 1 goal, which I believe came from a Tom Barrass free kick. I think it's Barrass actually, but I'm so programmed to say Barrass, but I believe that's wrong. I thought Darling worked hard in this game. Good to see him get a little bit rewarded with a couple of goals. Definitely keep him in. I think Ryan Marrick also was really impactful in the second half in particular. Bailey Williams held his own really well. I'm listing so many players here, but I think they all deserve a lot of credit. But Bailey Williams, that mark, that was mark of the round, I reckon. Unbelievable. I didn't see that at first. I saw it on Instagram. Unbelievable mark. And we're seeing a bit more of Jinby in a wing role. He's getting a little bit more uncontested ball. That's probably good for his longevity as well. And he's continuing to develop. So we're still getting most of the contribution from our older guys, but you're seeing little steps, and with a little bit more support, these younger guys are getting more. They're getting more time with the ball in hand for a start. They're under less pressure. They're not getting banged up as much. This is really conducive to developing the young part of our list, which is still going to need some time. So just listed a whole heap of positives. If I had to nitpick one weird thing that I think I'm a little bit baffled on from this game is the decision to make Dom Sheed the sub. It didn't have any impact on the game. The game was well and truly killed by the time he came on. But I wonder, right? So Dom Sheed needed some game time to get fit for AFL level. Played a couple of weeks in the Waffle on limited minutes. He came on at like the 11-minute mark of the last quarter. So in what world is Dom Sheed better suited now for AFL readiness than he was a week ago? I just don't know in hindsight whether or not that decision is fruitful at all. I almost think he's less ready to play AFL minutes next week than he was a week ago. I understand that when you're the sub, I believe what they do is they make you run a heap of laps after the game to get up your conditioning. But I do wonder if Sheed coming into the team now doesn't make sense. The 22 anyway. That was one thing I just thought I'd highlight there. I don't know if he should come in to the 22. Weird one. All right, let's talk about the juicy stuff of this video. Now, I'm going to credit Dylan82 from Big Footy. Big Footy is a great platform if you know who to listen to, in my opinion. That's my experience. There's a lot of people, opinions are like assholes, right? But there are a few people that do wonderful work and really contribute well. So I'm going to highlight Dylan82 and potentially throw up a screenshot or two. Okay, I'm going to quote, basically. So, Fremantle came into Derby 58 with the best average contested possession differential in the competition. Now, remember I said at the start of this video, we beat them by plus 24, which is quite significant. So against Richmond, we were actually plus 38 in contested possessions. And that was the first time we were plus 20 in that stat in a game since 2021, and the first half of 2021 at that. Now in the Derby, we've gone back-to-back plus 20 in these performances. That's the first time it's happened since McGovern kicked the after the goal siren against Port Adelaide in 2018, the year we won the flag. Furthermore, I'm going to put up a table. It's a screenshot. I believe this is Dylan's work. I think he's actually just recorded this himself. It's unreal. But if you look at this, 2018, we were ranked 7th in the league in contested possession. Then we went to 17th in 2019. Admittedly, we were a good team that year. The last 2 years, we were 18th and 18th. Minus 17.6, minus 18.2. That is a battering in contested possession. And now we're plus 8.2, which puts us second in the league in contested possessions. Now, I'm going off the top of the noggin here. I don't have the data to back it up, but I do remember this stat where West Coast went from being one of the weakest teams in contested ball for the first 17 rounds of 2018. In the last 7 weeks, including all the finals, we became the second best team. So that's a profile of a team that's obviously successful. Now, this is a one-dimensional analysis. It doesn't mean a lot, but what do we learn from this? Well, for all this talk about, how stagnant our game plan was, and that was correct, and I was one of the most vocal people saying that. That is absolutely true. But we think about what we've improved on. We're getting more ball inside 50. We're scoring from the back half for the first time. We're beating teams in contested possession. These were all horrible weaknesses of the latter stages of us being a good team. We have now completely flipped that, and while it's only early days, and I'm not necessarily saying this is going to lead to us being in a premiership contender this year, what I'm actually saying is, this is where we need to give Adam Simpson some credit. Now, I've kind of copped the criticism again in the past, maybe once or twice, but they've stuck with me for being a little bit pro-Simo. And the reason it's stuck with me is because I like to take feedback on and consider whether I think it's true. I don't think it's entirely true. I am generally pro-Simo. I like the guy. But my main loyalty is the team. And I just felt, after the Sydney game, that was the first time last year. Bear in mind, I was travelling and I missed a lot of our biggest thrashings, but I sat through the Sydney game last year and I thought, this is probably the time we need to start having this conversation. Then we get better. Then the Derby happens. We lose by 101 points. And I was not surprised at all to see that, maybe it is time to part ways because this club seems so broken. I was saying that last year. And then ultimately I realised when we publicly decided to keep Simo, I felt relief, and that was just a subconscious feeling. I didn't think about that. I just felt, I'm glad, because ultimately it's about not necessarily wanting to punish people by sacking them. For me, I'm just concerned, who is the best person to try and get us out of this mess right now? And it is early days. If you look at it superficially, we've just beaten Richmond, and then we had a really good win against Fremantle, so it's not as though lock him up and throw away the key, extend the contract or anything like that. I'm just saying that, the way we're playing, and the stats that indicate the stylistic difference of this team are definitely reasons to give Simpsons credit. We have stuck fat with him, I think partially because of the contract situation. Regardless, we've backed him in, and he's repaying that faith, and he deserves a lot of credit, as do maybe, someone like a Luke Shuey who's come in first year as the stoppage coach. This is the best stoppage version of West Coast we've seen in years. So I'm just saying, let's pay credit where it's due. This is a clear change in the team, and that's ultimately what we're, measuring Simo on. And it's good that he's got some soldiers back, and that's kind of, arguably the biggest reason why it's come good. But to reinvent a game style, like that, he deserves some credit. He deserves some credit for that. And the stats profile there does indicate we are a much improved team. And, you know, like I said in the video the other day, I don't know what this means for us now. I don't know where we sit in the competition. You know, we've edged our way out of the bottom 4, and I think that's about right. I think that's about right for what we've seen. How much better can it get? I've got a bit of a lurking feeling that Gold Coast will be a really tough game for us, but I can't rule us out. I have not tipped West Coast once this year. I didn't tip us against Fremantle. I didn't tip us against Richmond, and they've proved me wrong back-to-back weeks. And I'm reluctant now to tip Gold Coast because I think, oh, this team's full of beans at the moment. They're playing really well. We're still going to have our off days. I'm sure there's going to be another 10-goal loss this year, but I don't know where we sit, and that's a nice feeling to have. And I think back to 2 seasons where I felt like that. Well, probably more than 2. You have to include 2018, 2011, and 2015. And I'm not saying that we are a premiership contender. I'm not saying that we're going to finish top 4. We finished top 4 or top 2 in all of those seasons, and one of them we won a flag, another one we played in a grand final. I'm not saying it's going to be like that. What I'm talking about is not knowing where we sit. Like, expectations are down here, we're performing up here, and now there's this level of excitement again. That's the comparable feeling. Now, it could be like a 2011, and like, maybe we're shooting a final. That seems like a ridiculous game right now. I'm not making that seriously, but it could be the sign of things to come a little bit, and we really at least get close to finals. Or it could be a 2009, and if you've been around long enough, you'll remember that in 2009, we had some big wins early in the year, horrible in the middle of the year, won 4 of our last 5. We won the spoon the following year. So we don't really know, but shit, I can't wait to find out. It's really exciting. So I know the final question is what we're all thinking, the topic on everyone's lips. Priority pick. Thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.